Mayan calendar predicts end of the world. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe. Smash that like button, and ding that notification bell. In 2009, Indian astronomer Satnam Tsurutani is visited by his American geologist friend Adrian Helmsley. As Satnam recently discovered in his copper mine, the Earth's core temperature is rising faster than previously believed. During the G8 summit in Washington, Adrian alerts White House Chief of Staff, Carl Anheuser, about the impending catastrophe, and Anheuser then takes him to visit President Thomas Wilson. In 2010, President Wilson and other world leaders start constructing 9 arks in the Himalayas in Tibet, each sufficient to hold 100,000 people. A large number of people are relocated to another place so that the area can be utilized to produce the arks, which they are informed is a dam. Buddhist monk Nima is evacuated, and his brother Tenzin joins the Ark project and promises to provide money to his family. Tickets are secretly sold to the rich for €1 billion each to fund for the Ark's construction. In 2011, the Mona Lisa is put in storage and is replaced with a replica. The story opens in 2012 with limo chauffeur and struggling protagonist Jackson Curtis hurrying to pick up his children for a camping vacation in Yellowstone National Park. Gordon Silberman, a plastic surgeon and amateur pilot, dates Jackson's ex-wife Kate and shares a home with Jackson's 2 children, Noah and Lily. Jackson finally arrived at Gordon's premises and hurriedly took Noah and Lily camping. They entered an area of the park that the U.S. Army had sealed off and traversed what was once a lake but is now a hot, dry landscape. Military soldiers intercept them, and they meet Adrian, who has apparently read Jackson's book. After a little friendly discussion with Adrian, Jackson and the kids are freed and escorted to their campsite. Jackson encounters conspiracy theorist Charlie Frost, who runs a radio show on the park. There, Charlie alerts Jackson to the probable impending disaster and the fact that everyone trying to warn the public, including a professor who helped Jackson with his book research, was killed. Charlie goes on to inform Jackson about a map he has in possession that shows the precise location of alleged spaceships that the world leaders and other wealthy individuals are constructing to protect themselves when the disaster unfolds. Jackson leaves Charlie's premises unconvinced of the information he has just received from him. The following day, Gordon and Kate are in the grocery store when a crack splits the store in half. The camping trip is shortened when Kate calls Jackson home with the kids. Jackson's boss and Russian billionaire, Yuri Karpov, is in another part of Las Vegas watching and supporting his boxer in a boxing fight when he receives a message about the need to board the ship and leaves. Yuri immediately calls Jackson and tells him to quickly pick up and transport his twin sons to the airport for an immediate airlift. Jackson picked Yuri's twin sons and drove them to the airport. When Jackson was unpacking the kids' luggage, he intentionally struck the leg of one of the boys since he weren't in good terms with them. As a result, the boy threatened Jackson that he will die while they have tickets to a ship to live. The sons of Yuri's surprise departure, and a little crack Jackson witnessed right underneath his car made him realize Charlie was correct. He rented a small plane and quickly drove back to pick up his family for a quick departure from California. He contacts Kate to alert her to prepare for the escort, but she insisted that everything was okay up until their house started to shake. Few moments later, Jackson arrived and took them out of the house just in time before the house totally collapsed. A massive earthquake unfolded and destroyed major parts of California, but Jackson managed to drive through to the airport only to discover the pilot injured and unconscious. Immediately, Gordon is called upon to fly the plane. Gordon manages to get the plane airborne just before the coast slides into the ocean. They witness through the windows of the plane in horror as the whole California slides into the ocean. To get Charlie's map of where the alleged spaceships are located, they land in Yellowstone. Jackson and Lily sets off to find Charlie whilst the others stay behind to refuel the plane. They find Charlie's trailer. He himself was nowhere to be found. They later discover that he is actually standing atop a mountain, watching and broadcasting the impending disaster. They hurriedly approached Charlie on top of the mountain and found out from him where he was hiding the map. The Yellowstone caldera began to erupt. Charlie decided to stay behind to finish his broadcast while Jackson and his daughter headed back to the airstrip. Charlie dies in the eruption of Yellowstone as it explodes entirely. Meanwhile, after barely managing to drive out of the eruption safely, Jackson and Lily joined the others back at the airstrip. Jackson went back into Charlie's trailer to look for the map, that he later found but was almost left behind by the others since they thought he was dead at some point in time. The group narrowly escaped the eruption with Charlie's map. They learned from the map that the alleged spaceships are in China and that they will require a larger plane to get there. They land in Las Vegas in search for a larger plane to get to China. President Wilson tells Adrian and Anheuser that he has decided to stay behind after he was found praying in a chapel. In the Air Force One and Adrian informed everyone on board about the president's decision. Anheuser takes over as interim president after they got intel that the vice president's chopper crashed and the Speaker of the House also went missing. While President Wilson stays behind in Washington to deliver his message to the country, Adrian and the rest of the Air Force One crew, including the first daughter Laura, went ahead to China. Jackson and the others encounters Yuri, his sons, Tamara his girlfriend, and their pilot, Sasha. As the Yellowstone ash cloud envelopes Las Vegas, Jackson, Yuri and the others take out aboard Yuri's huge cargo plane with Gordon acting as a co-pilot for Sasha. After running out of runway and stopping the plane from colliding with the Eiffel Tower, they made it out of Las Vegas alive and continued their journey to China. In a global tsunami, many people perish, including President Wilson, who was struck by waves from the Atlantic Ocean. Adrian and the rest of the Air Force One crew land in China to board the alleged spaceships, which turns out to be very huge arcs. After boarding the Ark, Adrian received a phone call from his friend Satnam, only to discover that he had never been picked up. As a result, the tsunami kills Satnam and his family. Jackson and everyone else in Yuri's plane witness Hawaii engulfed in flames, ruining their plans to refuel. A few moments later, the plane started to run out of fuel and the engine started to malfunction, leaving them little alternative than to crash land the plane. Sasha fights to save the plane from crashing while the others escape in a Bentley that was kept in the hold. He manages to land the plane on a cliff, however, he dies when the plane falls over. Chinese Air Force helicopters spot them. Everyone else is left behind, except for Yuri and his sons who have tickets and are transported to the Arks. As Jackson and the others are traversing the mountains, they come upon Nima and his grandparents driving down to meet Nima's older brother so they can slip on board the Arks. They are given a lift to where the Arks are located by Nima. Nima begs and eventually manages to convince his brother, Tenzin, to let the extra travelers aboard. Due to the disaster's timeline being far faster than anticipated, only 4 of the 9 Arks were finished, preventing many people from boarding and creating severe confusion at the boarding area. With Tenzin's assistance, Jackson and the others slip away on Ark 4, designated to the U.S., stunning Yuri, who is now among the leftover boarding passengers after being saddened by the chaos among the leftover passengers. Adrian pleads with the crew to refrain from carrying out such awful deed, and he eventually persuades them to let everyone else on board. The loading gates are open but Yuri and his children get stranded underneath while the other passengers rush on board the Ark. Tenzin got injured by the gears in the Ark's hydraulics chamber as the gates were opening and Gordon is also crushed to death. As the tsunami gets closer to the Ark, Hesser gives the order to close the gate. Yuri hastily shoves one of his boys up and throws the other as the gate slowly closes, however, he falls to his death in the process. The gate is jammed open by Tenzin's impact driver which became locked in the gears when he got hurt, preventing the ship's engines from starting. The tsunami's impact time elapsed and the Arks had an impact with it but able to withstand it. However, the back of the Ark fills with water and the parked Air Force One which was carried by the tsunami destroys the Ark's anchor, causing it to move towards Mount Everest. The flood doors closes trapping Jackson and the stowaways and drowning Tamara. Adrian informs Jackson from the back of the floodgates that if the gears are not cleared for the engines to be started, no one will survive in the Ark. Jackson swims to unclog the gears. Noah pursues him, and the two manages to remove the impact driver. The crew recover control of the Ark only in time to prevent it from experiencing the full effects of the crash to Mount Everest. Jackson and Noah return safely as well. 27 days later, Adrian and Laura start dating, while Jackson and Kate revive their romance and reunite their family. The Ark is joined by its sister Arks and everyone on board is allowed to go outside to breathe fresh air as the flood subsided. Adrian and the other geologist on board learns that Africa was raised into the air by several thousand feet and was never even flooded. In fact, the Drakensberg Mountains have now surpassed the Himalayas as the tallest mountain range on Earth. All of the Arks sailed for the Cape of Good Hope in Africa, in the hopes that it will be able to support human life. Subscribe for more videos like this.